If I told you that there were people in their 80s that have memory, focus, and cognitive function to people decades younger, you would probably assume it's just genetics. But what's interesting is that's not what the research is showing. These individuals are referred to as super-agers. And when researchers study their brains, they don't just see less decline, they see fundamentally completely different patterns of brain aging. Little disclaimer here, yes, I am a physician assistant, but this video is for educational purposes only. This should not be taken as medical advice. Please always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health supplements or medications. So, let's actually break down what a super-ager is, and more importantly, what are they doing differently? Because this is not just about aging, this is about how your brain is functioning right now and what trajectory you are currently on. Superagers are typically defined as adults over the age of 80 who maintain memory and executive function comparable to people decades younger. So, what we're talking about here is they have strong recall, sharp decision making, clear thinking, and preserved cognitive speed. But here's where it gets really interesting. When researchers look at their brains structurally, they consistently find less cortical thinning and stronger function in a part of the brain called the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is critical for memory formation and learning. It's essentially one of the main control centers for your ability to retain and process information. And in most people, as they age, this area declines. But in superagers, it doesn't. A helpful way to think about it is like muscle. Okay, so most people assume that losing muscle as you age is a given, but we now know that is not true. If you train, you fuel, and you recover properly, you can maintain a significant amount of muscle well into your older age. Your brain works in a very similar way. It's not just passively aging, it's adapting to the environment that you give it. Now, one of the most fascinating findings from the research is that superagers don't just have structurally better brains, they have a different molecular and cellular environment in the brain. So, researchers have identified things like distinct gene expression patterns in hippocampal neurons, better epigenetic regulation of neurogenesis, a more supportive environment from astrocytes, and preservation of key neurons in the hippocampus. What this essentially means is that their brain is better at creating new neurons, protecting existing neurons, and maintaining communication between brain cells. This is why their cognition stays sharp. Now, before you hear that and think, okay, that sounds great, it's probably genetic, we need to zoom out because gene expression and epigenetics are heavily influenced by your lifestyle, meaning these things are not fixed. What you're doing now actually has an impact on your brain aging in your 80s. This is where we can actually pull this into something actionable because when we look at the research and then translate that into functional health, there are three major categories that consistently show up in supporting this type of brain resilience. So, the first one is supporting neurogenesis and epigenetic health. So, in simple terms, what this means is your brain's ability to create new cells and maintain flexibility because your brain is not static, it's constantly adapting, remodeling, and responding to your environment. One of the biggest drivers of this is actually nutrient status and metabolic health. So, something like methylation, which is a biochemical process that regulates gene expression, plays a huge role here. From a practical standpoint, there are a few key nutrients that have actually been shown to support this process at a cellular level. So, things like methylated B vitamins, so methylfolate and methylcobalamin. They play a huge role in methylation, which is one of the main processes that regulates gene expression in the brain. Not sponsored at all, but I often utilize pure encapsulations B complex here. So you also have compounds like SAMe and TMG, which further support that methylation cycle and help with neurotransmitter production. And then you have things like polyphenols. So curcumin, quercetin, resveratrol, and sulforaphane have actually been shown to support epigenetic signaling and protect neuronal function. Little fun fact, I'm actually taking a few of these things to support my fertility trying to conceive journey. So, from a food perspective, this is going to look like leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, arugula, berries, high quality animal protein sources. And but this is, something I want to make very clear is this is not just about taking a handful of supplements because you cannot out supplement a system that is inflamed or under recovered or poorly fueled. This starts with whole food nutrition, adequate protein, regulating your blood sugar, and actually giving your brain the raw materials it needs to function. Second major category here is reducing oxidative stress. And this is something that accelerates brain aging significantly. So, oxidative stress is essentially damage caused by reactive oxygen species, which can impair mitochondria and damage neuronal membranes. It's an easy way to think about it is like rust. So, when you leave metal exposed to the environment long enough, it starts to break down. The same concept actually applies to your brain. Your brain is particularly sensitive to this type of damage. Now, when it comes to actually supporting this, one of the most important pathways here is something called your NRF2 pathway. This is essentially your body's built in antioxidant defense system. And there are specific compounds that help to activate this. So, one of the most well researched is sulforaphane. And this you get from things like broccoli sprouts, for example. You have nutrients like N-acetylcysteine, which is often known as NAC, and alpha lipoic acid, which helps support glutathione production, which is your body's main antioxidant. And then you also have things you can add in like vitamin C and selenium, and these play an important role in protecting your cells from damage. So, from a lifestyle perspective, what are we looking at here? We're looking at reducing processed foods, managing alcohol intake, and improving sleep because those things just as important as all the supplements that you take. You're either increasing your oxidative stress or you're helping your body buffer it. Okay, so the third category here is reducing neuroinflammation. And this is one of the biggest drivers that I see in cognitive decline clinically. Because when your brain is inflamed, it cannot function how it should. There are very specific cells in the brain called microglia and astrocytes, and they regulate inflammation and support neuronal health. And when these things become dysregulated, you start to see impaired neurogenesis and damage to brain cells. Now, from a clinical standpoint, there are also compounds that specifically help calm down your neuroinflammation and support those brain cells that we just talked about. So, things like curcumin and quercetin, they do have anti-inflammatory effects at the brain level. You also have more targeted compounds, so something like PEA. This helps regulate inflammatory signaling. And even something as simple as melatonin, when used appropriately, has been shown to support brain recovery and actually reduce inflammation in the brain. Now, I want to emphasize something here. If your gut is inflamed, if your stress is extremely high, if your sleep is off, you are going to continue to drive neuroinflammation no matter what supplements you take, because these tools work best when your foundation is already in place. Now, I want to bring you into three practical things that you can actually focus on, not a list of 20 different things that you need to do. Three foundational areas that are actually going to move the needle the most. The first, if you've listened to anything by me, you've heard me preach about this, is protecting your sleep, okay? So, deep sleep is when your brain actually clears waste. It reduces inflammation and it resets. If your sleep is off, honestly, none of this is going to matter too much. The second is managing your total stress load. So, not just emotional stress, but physical stress, also from overtraining, undereating, constant stimulation throughout the day. Chronic stress is one of the fastest ways that you can actually accelerate your brain aging. The third is supporting your gut and metabolic health because your gut directly influences your inflammation, nutrient absorption, and even neurotransmitter production. So if your gut is off, your brain is going to feel it. This is where I see a lot of people get stuck. They're looking for one supplement, one stack, one shortcut. But super-agers are not built on hacks like this. They are built on consistent inputs that support the system over time. So if you zoom out and ask yourself, am I creating an environment where my brain can thrive? That is the real question because your brain is adapting to your lifestyle every single day. And the choices you're making right now are shaping how you will function 10, 20, 50 years down the line. And if you like this type of content and would like a clear cut plan on how you can also become a super ager, click the link in the description below for a free consult with my team. This is exactly what we're doing inside of our coaching programs. If you found this information helpful, save it, share it with a friend. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one.